Well, we want to thank you for taking some time to watch this video. It's our sincere desire that what you're going to find is helpful information regarding some of the upcoming changes that we have going on here. Bottom line, all of this is being driven by good factors. The primary one is growth. We have some spatial issues with our building that's not allowing us to fit everyone in as we would like, and so we're in the process of buying a new building and having that built. But we also are in the process of figuring out what ministries are best to be used at what time. So in the past we had the small group ministry, and we've stopped that, and we're going to be doing some other ones instead. And so what I did was a few months ago I asked Taylor to come on to take the place of Grayson, who had decided to go look for a pastorate of his own. And so I was surprised, but Taylor did agree to come on, and that has been a lot of work on his end, where he's gathering all kinds of information. And in the process, we began to examine what needed to change. Now, one quick word about the change, so that you can keep this in mind as we talk about the specifics. All we are doing is changing the ministries, the programs. Some of you remember the book, The Trellis and the Vine. We're working on the trellis, the things that are going to help support spiritual growth at the church. So what you're going to hear from Taylor as he describes the new things we're doing, all of these we believe are allowing us to more efficiently instruct the church as a whole. So with that in mind, I'm going to give it over to you to talk about our first one. I think that's Sunday school, right?
Yep, Sunday school. So our new curriculum is called Generations of Grace. So this program is a 3-year program, but it will run year-round. So it'll be 52 weeks a year, and we'll have some lessons that are geared towards Easter, geared towards Christmas, when we get to those seasons. But the ultimate goal of that curriculum is to help the children become familiar with the scriptures themselves, the major themes and events in it, and the curriculum can be very much likened to an Old Testament or a New Testament survey. So it begins year 1, day 1, Genesis 1:1, with in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and it takes you all the way through, and by the end of year 3, you get to the end of Revelation with the new heavens and the new earth. And then, like I said, there's some lessons in there when you get to Christmas and Easter where you'll kind of shift gears.
All right, so what's the big difference between this curriculum and what we've been using?
Yeah, so the first one is going to be that all the age groups are going to be learning the same thing at the same time. So I have 3 kids, different ages, and they all are getting different lessons each week. That's going to be changing, so you get in the van afterwards. I think I've said this from the pulpit, but you get in the van afterwards and you ask your kids, what'd you learn this week? You should get variations of the same thing, but at different levels of depth. So my youngest will give me, a little bit more easy answers, and the oldest should be able to fill in some of that information. But again, all the same.
Okay.
Yep. Another change, so this will be big for some people, but there's no scripture memory on Sunday morning for Sunday school anymore. Now, it's not gone, it's just being shifted from the Sunday school over to the Adventure Club, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But essentially what that is allowing is the new Sunday school curriculum has an emphasis on repetition. Over and over again, you're trying to drive home the major points that are being covered that week. And so everything from the time of instruction itself to when you do worksheets or coloring sheets at the end, to family devotional stuff, which I'll get into in a minute. All of those things are designed to provide repetition for the students. And so by shifting the memory verses over to the evening service, to the Adventure Club, that allows more time for the repetition of those things. Yep. Another thing, so there's no more packets or pages that need to be signed and returned each week. So for some parents, you may rejoice in that. But essentially, anything that goes home with your child with Sunday school is optional. Okay, so there are some activity guides that they can do. There are some coloring sheets that will be available to them. Those are all optional. They can do them if they desire, but they don't need to sign anything. They don't need to return anything. Now, one more thing, I'd mentioned it earlier, that's the family devotional. Now, this also, I'd like to say off the bat, is optional, okay? It's designed to be a help to you. And so what it is a 5-day devotional guide for families that is tightly correlated to what was taught on Sunday morning. So it should take about 10 minutes for a family to sit down, go over some of the major points. And again, it's just a guide. It's short, which is helpful for families who, especially young families who are trying to establish a habit, establish a pattern. But the nice thing really is that all your kids, regardless of what level they learned it on Sunday morning, and you as the family will be able to sit down together and you'll be able to go through these things. And again, just like to emphasize again, it's an optional thing that we hope will be a help.
When you say optional, part of that is that we're not demanding it to be done, but it's up to the parents. Each parent is going to ultimately make decisions on whether or not they'll use or take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so what Kendall has recommended, and she's going to help me with, is making those devotional guides available via PDF. So not only do you have the option of printing or using it digitally, but you then don't have to just throw away something that we sent home in you thinking that there was an expectation that you had to do it. It's not. It'll be freely available for you, but you don't have to do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else on the Sunday school?
So I could just take a second, talk through what a typical lesson will look like.
Yes.
Right now for you parents, you show up at the door, drop off your kids. So what will it look like from there? So I mentioned a minute ago that repetition is really important in this. So the first 5 to 10 minutes of each week is going to be spent in review. What did we talk about last week? If your family did the devotional guide, what did you learn? And just try and remind them of what was already talked about, because it's all going to be building on that. So the first 5 to 10 minutes will be spent doing that. The next 20 to 30 minutes will be the lesson itself. After the lesson is done, their attention span is going to start waning at this point, and so we transition to some activity sheets that are there, and the difficulty levels for those will vary based on the ages. And after their attention span starts to die there, and those activity pages, again, are all they're doing is reinforcing what was already taught by the teacher, is you then transition into stuff like coloring sheets. So you're starting up here on their focus level, and as they start losing it, you start coming down in the difficulty level so that by the time the parents are ready to pick them up, they're about done, but you've pretty well covered everything.
All right, that's exciting. Anything else?
No?
Well, this is the biggest change we've done in the sense of curriculum, because we haven't changed it for 20 years. So I'm actually very excited about seeing some of the changes. We have talked about already, made reference to this thing called the Adventure Club, and I want you to explain that. But before you do, I want to explain why we have that and what's happening with it all. It all really started with the need for us to begin to teach the church more effectively. As the church grows, you can't have those little 5-person Bible studies. There's just not enough time to go around for all of that. So we've had to rethink, how do we most effectively teach the people? If you know, Ephesians 4 says that our task is not to do the work, but to equip you to do the work. And you do this through the ministry of the word. So how do we teach the people in most efficient manner? That's where I realized that we need to resurrect an old thing, and that is the evening service. But if we're going to do that, what are we going to do with the children? Do we want them to sit in with it? They'd be welcome. But also, could we do that and make that a time in which we redeem the time? So that's where the Adventure Club came in, and it correlates itself very much to your Sunday school curriculum. It's built in the same way, right?
Yeah, so they'll essentially complement each other.
Well, then before you talk about that, let me just give you a sense of what we're hoping to do with the evening service. It'll be a simple time, about an hour and a half. It's going to be covering the same time the Adventure Club. But what we're trying to do is make it something less than the Sunday morning sermon, but something more than just simply a lightweight type of Bible study. So we're going to be doing things on theology, a lot of practical theology. In fact, we're going to start off with a whole series on Christ-honoring relationships. So how do you work your way through these relationships at work, especially now when it's so overtly hostile toward a Christian worldview? How do you deal with prodigal children? What do you do in a marriage relationship, a work relationship, friendships? All of these are different relationships that you and I are called to do to the glory of God. So how can we do that? We'll do things like that. We're going to also go into a survey of all the books of the Bible ourselves on a much more higher level. That's something you're learning in seminary, right? And then we'll be working through other parts of theology. We will do this 9 months out of the year, though, and that's important for you to know. during the summer, just like the Adventure Club, this evening service will take a break and let everybody soak up the time. So with that, let me turn back to you. Tell me about the Adventure Club.
Yeah, so the Adventure Club will be, like you said, the Sunday evening children's ministry that we provide. And unlike the Sunday school curriculum, which runs a full year, so 52 weeks, this will also be in alignment with the Sunday evening service,
Right.
so 9 months. So the parents will get a break there. The point, though, of the Adventure Club, the goal, the aim, is systematic theology. So Sunday morning during the Sunday school, they're getting the raw knowledge. What is the Bible? What are the major books? What are the major events and themes? And in Sunday evening, they're getting, okay, who is Christ? Right? So a Christology. Who is the Spirit? Right? What are his roles and responsibilities? Eschatology, etc. So we're going to cover those sorts of things. And some of the highlights, some of the things that we can go over that will be good, I think, for families is, first of all, the curriculum was written for a wide range of ages. So all the way from 3 years old up to 11. And so that's actually what we're going to be aiming to offer, is those ages, 3 all the way to 11. Now, it's a wide gap, and so we may have to alter some things to make the teaching accessible to all those ages, but it's designed to be used that way. So,
And you've seen it in action, right?
yeah, yep. So I went down to Kansas a month or two ago and got to see it in action across a very wide range of ages. And so it was actually pretty cool to see that. Kids very young, same as like we're going to do here, from 3 all the way up to 11, being able to sit still, answer questions, and even though a lot of it will at times go over their heads, just like when you get in the van after Sunday school and your 9-year-old gives a more in-depth answer than your 5-year-old, the 5-year-old gets kind of pulled up with them.
Sure.
So we think that'll be a positive. Now, scripture memory. I talked about how we're kind of taking that from the Sunday morning, the Sunday school, and we're going to kind of shift that over. There is still an emphasis on scripture memory. That's something we think is important, and that's built into the very fabric of this curriculum. So while you're learning about who is Christ, you're going to be memorizing verses that are supporting all of these doctrines that they're learning. So very cool. They're also going to be rewarded for it. So if you don't know, each of the kids is going to be provided a cool satchel, Indiana Jones style. And on that satchel, as they complete the various verses that go along with each of the lessons, they're going to be getting different pins and badges and those sorts of things, which again, it's just a fun way to reward them for something that's very important in the memorization of Scripture.
I think it looks cool.
I do too. Yeah.
I won't have any because I'm too big.
There's some adult ones that are coming,
Oh.
actually. So we'll see. The kids will also get, in addition to the satchel, they're going to get a workbook. So the workbook, there's a small cost associated with it. The church is going to be covering the cost of the actual satchels for all the kids. It's a one-time cost. They get to keep that for life. The books will last they're broken down by age group. So 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and then 9 to 11. And so your kid will just get a book for whatever age group they're in until they're out of that, and then they'll just get the next one. And there's a small cost associated with that, and we'll let you guys know what that is when we get there. But in that book is a summary of all the verses that they have that week. So you don't have pieces of paper floating around. You don't have to sign anything. It's all contained in that book, and it's tightly connected to what they're learning in the actual lesson. So do you want me to walk you through what a typical night will kind of look like?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, the plan, and we'd ask you guys to be flexible with us on this because we are starting it from scratch. The plan is going to be to spend 5 to 10 minutes like the Sunday school in review, because how this is going to be broken down is into 5-week blocks. So for Christology, for example, you're going to spend 5 weeks learning various aspects of who is Christ, what has he done, why is he God. You're going to learn those things. And they all build towards a final review week where all of those are then going to be covered. And all you're going to do that week is you're going to review. So what we want to do is make sure that as we build towards the review week, that we're also keeping kids up to date and up to speed. So there's going to be some review time, 20 to 30 minutes 30 at tops of instruction. So what are we going over this week? And then after we're done with that, we're going to move into scripture memory. So those age groups I mentioned, so 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 11, they're going to split off into lines. They're going to do their scripture memory for the week. And then from there, with any time that's remaining, we actually want kids to have fun, be friends. And so a dodgeball, those sorts of things will be done. And we'll just try to give them a chance to recreate.
About how long total?
About an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, so right now we need helpers then, right?
We do.
What are the type of persons who would be best fit for something like that?
Yeah, so for helpers, we would love helpers across a few different categories, but for the helpers alongside things like memory verses and that sort of stuff, new believers, people new to the church, for example, some of the people who just finished the FOF class we just wrapped up, something like that, they would be great to come alongside, help the kids do their memory verses, etc.
Who else do you need?
Yeah, so we will need a few teachers. So we're going to try to have between 3 to 5 head teachers. So that's something that Jake and I will work on and approaching some people for that. And then we'll just need general help. I mentioned before being flexible. An example of this will be if we get, for example, a lot of kids in the 3 to 5 age group, we may need to, in the activity time frame, right, when we get to dodgeball and that sort of stuff, we may need to move them and have them recreate somewhere else. And so some helpers for things like that will be really
they
good.
don't get killed.
That would be a good thing,
All right.
generally speaking.
They got to learn somehow. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that all of you who heard that take that to heart, especially young believers. This would be a great place for you to plug in. Initial serving, you'd be amazed how much you're going to learn, also be to help this ministry. Along with that, we have a couple of other smaller changes going on. What are they?
Yeah, so FOF is becoming a staple here at the church. Over the years, it's been done as needed, but the need is growing, and so too is the necessity then to do it more frequently. So that's going to become a regular thing. So the goal is to offer that at least twice a year, maybe 3 times if necessary. And so that will probably start around the same time that the Adventure Club and the Sunday evening service and those things start. So that's a 13-week program, and so that's one of them. In addition to that, there are some other book studies that we've looked at. So Jake is wrapping up the Respectable Sin study in his community group. He's found that to be a very helpful book. Many other people in the church who've read it would agree with that. But that would be an example of one of the book studies that we could do. Now the topics could vary, but the goal would be to essentially do a 6 to a 13 week, depending on how long the book is, study specific to something that is perhaps requested or needed at the time. So finances, prayer, those sorts of things.
So, but it's targeted with a clear end date, so people can say, I know I'm signing up for this.
Yep.
And then
exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And we'll try to work with anyone who's actually teaching it to limit class sizes to fit their homes so that we aren't overcrowding them.
Okay, so I think that's everything then. The number one thing we're doing is the whole curriculum change in Sunday school, so be looking for that. Along with that, the evening service. I hope you'll come to that. I hope that you'll take advantage of it. We certainly have the Adventure Club in place now for the kids. I think you're going to find that to be a wonderful time too. So if you have any questions in light of what we've said, just simply send us an email, give us a call, or talk to us on Sunday, and we'll try to help you. Thank you.